The bullet missed Anna Lawson by 3 inches, splintering the door frame where she stood on that dusty afternoon in Coloma, California, and changed everything she thought she knew about survival and second chances. She dropped to the ground, heart hammering against her ribs as another shot rang out across the dry street. The year was 1864, and violence had become as common as breathing in this gold-mining town that had seen better days. Anna pressed herself against the weathered boards of the general store, her worn calico dress gathering dust as she tried to make herself as small as possible. The shooting had erupted over a card game gone wrong, or so she heard someone shout, but the reason hardly mattered when lead was flying through the air. A strong hand gripped her shoulder, and before she could scream, she was being pulled backward through the doorway. She stumbled over the threshold, catching herself against a barrel of flour. When she looked up, she saw a tall figure blocking the doorway, his broad shoulders silhouetted against the harsh afternoon sun. "Stay down," he said, his voice low and steady despite the chaos outside. He wore the dusty clothes of a working cowboy, chaps stained with dirt and sweat, a faded blue shirt rolled up to his elbows. His hat was pulled low, shadowing most of his face, but she could see the sharp line of his jaw and the way his hand rested on the revolver at his hip. Anna pressed herself against the wall, her breath coming in short gasps. She had lived in Coloma for 3 months now, working as a seamstress and trying to build a life after her parents had died of fever back in Missouri. Coming west had seemed like her only option, a chance to start over where nobody knew her story or pitied her for it. But the West was proving to be far more dangerous than she had imagined. The shooting stopped as suddenly as it had started. The silence that followed was somehow worse than the gunfire, pregnant with possibility and dread. The cowboy stayed in the doorway for a long moment, watching the street with the alertness of someone who had learned caution the hard way. "You all right, miss?" he asked without turning around. "Yes," Anna managed, though her voice shook. "Thank you." He finally turned to look at her, and she got her first clear view of his face. He was younger than she had expected, probably not more than 25 or 26. His features were weathered by sun and wind, but there was something gentle in his dark eyes that surprised her. A thin scar ran along his left cheekbone, a reminder that he had seen his share of trouble. "Tyler Crawford," he said, touching the brim of his hat. "I work the Morrison Ranch about 10 miles north of here." Anna Lawson. She stood up slowly, brushing dust from her dress with trembling hands. "I'm the seamstress. My shop is just down the street." Tyler nodded, glancing back out at the street where a crowd was beginning to gather. "Looks like the marshal got things under control. One fellow dead, another wounded. Same story every week in this town." There was a weariness in his voice that spoke of someone who had seen too much senseless violence. Anna understood that feeling all too well. She had spent her childhood in a quiet Missouri town, where the most exciting thing that happened was the 4th of July picnic. The West was a different world entirely, beautiful and brutal in equal measure. "I should get back to my shop," Anna said, though she was not entirely sure her legs would carry her. "I have a wedding dress to finish by tomorrow." "I'll walk you," Tyler said. It was not a question, and Anna found herself grateful for his assumption. She did not want to walk those few hundred yards alone, not with her heart still racing and her hands still shaking. They stepped out into the street together, and Anna was acutely aware of his presence beside her. He was tall, probably 6 feet or more, and he moved with the loose, easy grace of someone who spent most of his time in the saddle. His boots were worn but well cared for, and she noticed that his gun belt was plain leather, no fancy tooling or silver conchos. A practical man, then, not given to showing off. The crowd in the street parted for them as they walked. Anna recognized most of the faces, though she knew few of them by name. There was old Mrs. Henderson from the boarding house, her wrinkled face tight with disapproval. Young Billy Chen from the laundry, his eyes wide with excitement despite the death that had just occurred. The banker, Mr. Watts, stood on the steps of his establishment looking annoyed rather than shocked, as if the shooting had been a personal inconvenience. Anna's shop was a small building wedged between the hardware store and a saloon. She had rented it from the widow who owned most of the commercial buildings on this street, paying an exorbitant sum for the privilege of having her own business. The sign she had painted herself swung gently in the hot breeze. Anna Lawson, dressmaker and seamstress. "Thank you again," she said as they reached her door. "You probably saved my life." Tyler shook his head. "Just happened to be in the right place." "Or the wrong place, depending on how you look at it." "The right place," Anna said firmly. "Definitely the right place." He smiled then, a slow expression that transformed his serious face. "Well, in that case, I'm glad I came into town today. I was supposed to come in yesterday, but we had a fence break and I had to stay at the ranch." "Fate, perhaps," Anna said, surprising herself with the philosophical observation. She was not usually given to such thoughts, preferring to focus on the practical realities of thread and fabric and making her way in the world. "Perhaps," Tyler agreed. He stood there for a moment longer as if he wanted to say something else, but then he touched his hat again. "You take care, Miss Lawson." She watched him walk away, his long stride carrying him down the street toward where his horse was tied outside the general store. There was something about him that stayed with her as she went inside and tried to focus on the wedding dress spread across her work table. The way he had moved to protect her without hesitation, the gentleness in his eyes despite the readiness in his stance, the quiet competence that seemed to radiate from him like heat from a stove. Anna forced herself to concentrate on her work, but her hands were still shaking as she threaded her needle. The bride who would wear this dress was the daughter of one of the mine owners, a spoiled girl who had changed her mind about the design 3 times already. Anna had spent hours unpicking seams and resewing them, biting back her frustration because she needed the money. The payment for this dress would cover her rent for 2 months. As she worked, she found her thoughts drifting back to Tyler Crawford. She wondered what kind of life he led at the Morrison Ranch. She had heard of the Morrison family, of course. Everyone in Coloma knew about them. They ran one of the larger cattle operations in the area, supplying beef to the mining camps and the growing settlements throughout the Sierra Nevada foothills. It was hard work, dangerous work, but honest work that did not rely on the fickle promise of gold. Anna had never understood the gold fever that gripped so many people. Her father had been one of them, dragging the family west with dreams of striking it rich. He had spent his days bent over a cold stream, panning for flakes of gold that never amounted to much. When the fever took him and her mother in the same week, Anna had been left alone with nothing but debt, and the skills her mother had taught her with a needle. She worked until the light began to fade, lighting the lamp on her work table as shadows crept across the floor. The wedding dress was nearly finished now, just a few more details to complete. She would work late into the night if necessary, anything to keep her mind occupied and away from the memory of that bullet splintering the wood so close to her head. The next morning dawned clear and hot, the kind of day that made the dry hills shimmer with heat even before the sun was fully up. Anna dressed carefully in her second-best dress, a dark blue cotton that she had made herself. She packed the wedding dress in clean muslin and set out to deliver it to the mine owner's house on the hill overlooking town. The walk was steep and dusty, but the view from the top was spectacular. She could see the whole town spread out below, the American River glinting in the distance, and the endless rolling hills covered in golden grass. It was beautiful in its own harsh way, so different from the green abundance of Missouri. The mine owner's wife inspected the dress with a critical eye while her daughter squealed with delight. Anna waited patiently as the woman checked every seam, every button, every inch of lace. Finally, she nodded and counted out the payment, gold coins that clinked heavily in Anna's hand. "You do fine work, Miss Lawson," the woman said grudgingly. "I will recommend you to my friends." Anna thanked her and made her escape before the daughter could suggest any last-minute changes. The coins in her pocket felt like security, like the possibility of a future. She stopped at the general store on her way back to buy supplies, flour and sugar and coffee, the essentials that would keep her going for another few weeks. As she was leaving the store, her arms full of packages, she nearly collided with someone coming through the door. Strong hands steadied her, catching the topmost package before it could fall. "We have to stop meeting like this," Tyler Crawford said, his eyes crinkling with amusement. Anna felt heat rise to her cheeks. "I'm sorry, I wasn't watching where I was going. No harm done." He held the door open for her, following her out onto the porch. "Can I help you carry those somewhere? I can manage, thank you." But even as she said it, the packages shifted precariously in her arms. Tyler reached out and took the top 3 without asking. "Where to?" "My shop is just down the street." They walked together, and Anna was surprised by how comfortable the silence felt. Some people needed to fill every moment with chatter, but Tyler seemed content to simply walk beside her, his long legs easily matching her shorter stride. "I was hoping I might run into you," he said as they reached her door. Anna's heart did something strange in her chest. "Oh, I wanted to make sure you were all right. After yesterday, I mean. That was a frightening thing to happen." "I'm fine," Anna said, though the memory still made her pulse quicken. "Thanks to you." Tyler set the packages down on the bench outside her door. He seemed to be struggling with something, his jaw working as if he was trying to find the right words. Finally, he said, "I was wondering if you might like to take a ride sometime. See some of the country outside of town. It's beautiful out on the prairie this time of year." Anna hesitated. She barely knew this man, and she had learned to be cautious about trusting people too quickly. But there was something about Tyler that made her want to say yes, something in the honest directness of his gaze and the way he had protected her without expecting anything in return. "I don't ride," she said finally. "I could teach you, or we could take a wagon if you prefer." "I have a lot of work," Anna began, but Tyler interrupted gently. "Everyone needs a break sometimes, Miss Lawson, even seamstresses." She found herself smiling despite her reservations. "I suppose you're right. When did you have in mind?" "Sunday afternoon. I could pick you up around 1 o'clock." "All right," Anna said, surprising herself with the decisiveness of her answer. "Sunday afternoon." Tyler's whole face lit up with his smile. "I'll see you then." Anna watched him walk away again, and this time she let herself enjoy the view. There was something undeniably attractive about the way he moved, confident but not arrogant, strong but gentle. She shook her head at herself and carried her packages inside. She had work to do, and mooning over a cowboy was not going to get her dresses sewn. Sunday came faster than she expected. Anna changed her dress 3 times before settling on a simple green cotton that brought out the color of her eyes. She told herself she was being ridiculous, that this was just a simple outing with a man who had been kind to her, but her racing heart suggested otherwise. Tyler arrived exactly on time, driving a small wagon pulled by 2 sturdy horses. He had cleaned up since she last saw him, wearing a fresh shirt and clean trousers, his hair still damp from washing. He helped her up onto the wagon seat with a courtesy that would have done any gentleman proud. As they drove out of town, Anna felt herself beginning to relax. The constant noise and bustle of Coloma fell away, replaced by the chirping of insects and the creak of the wagon wheels. The air smelled of dry grass and wildflowers, sweet and clean. "Tell me about Missouri," Tyler said after a while. Anna was surprised by the question. Most people wanted to talk about themselves, not ask about her past. "What do you want to know?" "Whatever you want to tell me." So she told him about growing up in a small town where everyone knew everyone else, about her mother teaching her to sew, about the devastating fever that had taken her parents and left her alone. She told him about the decision to come west, about the fear and hope that had warred in her chest during the long journey. Tyler listened without interrupting, his hands steady on the reins. When she finished, he was quiet for a moment before he spoke. "I lost my family too," he said. "Different circumstances, but the end result was the same. My parents had a small farm in Texas. Comanches raided it when I was 17. I was out checking on a sick cow and came back to find them gone. The house burned, everything destroyed." Anna reached out without thinking, placing her hand on his arm. "I'm sorry." "It was a long time ago," Tyler said, but she could hear the old grief in his voice. "I drifted for a while after that, worked different ranches, learned the cattle business, eventually ended up here in California. The Morrison family took me on 5 years ago, and I've been with them ever since." "You like it?" "The work, I mean." Tyler nodded. "I do. It's hard, but it's honest. And there's something about working with cattle, being out on the range, that suits me. I'm not much for towns and crowds." "And yet you keep coming into Coloma," Anna said, feeling bold. He glanced at her, and the look in his eyes made her breath catch. "I've found a reason to like towns better these days." They drove in comfortable silence for a while longer, the wagon climbing into the hills above the river. The landscape here was a patchwork of golden grassland and dark green oak trees, beautiful in its stark simplicity. Anna found herself thinking that Missouri had been pretty in a soft, gentle way, but California was beautiful with the kind of beauty that could take your breath away. Tyler pulled the wagon to a stop on a small rise that overlooked a wide meadow. The grass here was dotted with wildflowers, splashes of purple and yellow and white that moved gently in the breeze. In the distance, Anna could see the blue outline of mountains, their peaks still touched with snow even in summer. "This is one of my favorite spots," Tyler said as he helped her down from the wagon. "I come here sometimes when I need to think." Anna walked a few steps into the meadow, feeling the grass brush against her skirt. The flowers were everywhere, more than she had ever seen in one place. There were tiny purple blooms on tall stalks, cheerful yellow flowers with dark centers, delicate white blossoms that looked like stars. The beauty of it made her throat tight with an emotion she could not quite name. Tyler came to stand beside her, and they looked out over the meadow together. "I wanted to show you this," he said quietly. "After what happened the other day, with the shooting, I thought you might need to see that there's more to this place than violence and death. There's beauty here too, if you know where to look." Anna turned to look at him, really look at him, and she saw something in his face that made her heart skip. He was not just being kind. He was not just trying to cheer her up. He cared what she thought, what she felt. He had brought her here because he wanted to share something that mattered to him with her. "It's beautiful," she said softly. "Thank you for bringing me here." Tyler smiled, and then he did something that surprised her. He walked a few steps into the meadow and began picking flowers, carefully selecting different colors and varieties. He returned with a handful of wildflowers, their stems wrapped together in his large, calloused hands. "For you," he said, offering them to her. Anna took the bouquet, feeling tears prick at her eyes. No one had ever given her flowers before. Her life had been too practical for such gestures, too focused on survival to make room for romance. But here was this cowboy, this strong, gentle man, offering her wildflowers from the prairie with a look in his eyes that spoke of possibilities she had not dared to imagine. "These are more beautiful than any ring," she said, the words coming from somewhere deep inside her. She had not planned to say them, but they felt true in a way that resonated in her bones. These flowers, picked by his hands, given freely without expectation, meant more to her than any expensive gift could have. Tyler looked at her with an expression that was part wonder, part hope. "I'm glad you think so." They stood there in the meadow, surrounded by wildflowers and possibilities, and Anna felt something shift inside her. She had come west expecting hardship and struggle, prepared to fight for every scrap of security she could earn. She had not expected this sudden blooming of feeling for a man she barely knew. But sometimes, she was learning, the best things in life were the ones you did not see coming. They spent the afternoon exploring the meadow and the hills beyond. Tyler taught her the names of some of the flowers, though he admitted he did not know them all. Anna learned that he was observant in ways she had not expected, noticing small details in the landscape, the tracks of animals, the way the light changed as the sun moved across the sky. As the afternoon wore on, they sat on a flat rock overlooking the valley and talked. Anna found herself telling him things she had not told anyone else, about her fears and her dreams, about the loneliness of being alone in the world. Tyler listened with the same quiet attention he had shown before, and when he spoke, his words were thoughtful and genuine. "I know what it's like to feel alone," he said. "Even when you're surrounded by people, there's a kind of loneliness that comes from not having anyone who really knows you. Not having family, not having someone to care about whether you come home at the end of the day." "But you have the Morrison family," Anna said. "You said they've been good to you." "They have," Tyler agreed. "They're good people, and I'm grateful for the work. But it's not the same as having your own people, your own place. I've been saving my wages, planning to buy some land of my own someday. Start my own ranch, small at first, but something that's mine." "That sounds like a good dream," Anna said. "What about you? What do you dream about?" Anna thought about it, surprised to realize she had not let herself dream much since coming west. She had been too focused on surviving, on building a life one day at a time. But now, sitting here with Tyler, looking out over this beautiful wild land, she let herself imagine. "I want to have a real shop," she said slowly. "Not just a rented room, but my own building where I could sell ready-made dresses as well as do custom work. And I want to teach other women to sew, to give them a skill they can use to support themselves. I've seen too many women trapped in bad situations because they have no way to earn their own money." Tyler nodded approvingly. "That's a good dream, an important one." The sun was beginning to sink toward the horizon when they finally started back to town. Anna held her bouquet of wildflowers carefully, determined to press them and keep them as a reminder of this perfect afternoon. Tyler drove slowly, as if he too was reluctant for the day to end. As they entered the outskirts of Coloma, Tyler cleared his throat. "I was wondering if I might call on you again. I come into town most Saturdays to pick up supplies for the ranch. Maybe we could have dinner together next week." "I would like that," Anna said, and she was rewarded with another of his transformative smiles. He helped her down from the wagon outside her shop, his hands lingering at her waist for just a moment longer than necessary. Anna felt heat flood her cheeks, but she did not step away. "Until next Saturday, then," Tyler said. "Until then." Anna watched him drive away, then let herself into her shop. The building felt different somehow, as if she was seeing it with new eyes. She found a bottle that would work as a vase and arranged her wildflowers in it, setting them on the windowsill where she could see them while she worked. The purple and yellow and white blooms looked cheerful against the rough boards of the wall, a reminder that beauty could exist even in harsh places. The next week passed in a blur of work. Anna had more orders than usual, which meant long hours bent over her sewing, but she found herself humming as she worked. The wildflowers on her windowsill began to fade, but she pressed several of the best blooms between the pages of her mother's old Bible, preserving them forever. Saturday arrived, and Anna dressed with more care than usual. She wore her best dress, a deep rose color that she had made from fabric she had been saving for a special occasion. She did her hair up in a style she had seen in a fashion magazine, soft curls framing her face. Tyler arrived at 6 o'clock, looking handsome in clean clothes and with his boots polished to a shine. He offered her his arm like a gentleman, and they walked together to the hotel restaurant, the best eating establishment in Coloma. The meal was simple but good, roast beef and potatoes and fresh bread. They talked easily, the conversation flowing naturally from one topic to another. Anna learned more about the Morrison Ranch and the challenges of raising cattle in this dry country. Tyler asked about her work, genuinely interested in the details of pattern making and fabric selection. After dinner, they walked slowly back toward her shop, taking the long way around the edge of town. The night was warm and clear, stars scattered across the black sky like diamonds on velvet. Anna found herself very aware of Tyler beside her, of the solid strength of his arm under her hand. They stopped outside her shop, neither of them quite ready to say good night. Tyler looked down at her, and in the faint light from the window, Anna could see the conflict on his face. "I know I'm just a working cowboy," he said finally. "I don't have much to offer except hard work and honest intentions, but I want you to know that I think about you constantly. All week while I'm working, you're on my mind. I find myself looking forward to Saturdays like I've never looked forward to anything before." Anna's heart was pounding so hard she was sure he must be able to hear it. "I think about you too," she admitted. "I've tried not to, told myself it's foolish to get attached so quickly, but I can't seem to help it." Tyler reached up and gently touched her cheek, his calloused fingers surprisingly gentle. "Would it be all right if I kissed you?" Anna nodded, not trusting her voice. Tyler leaned down slowly, giving her time to change her mind, but she did not want to change her mind. When his lips met hers, soft and careful, she felt something ignite inside her. The kiss was brief and chaste, appropriate for a public street, but it held a promise of more to come. When he pulled back, Tyler's eyes were dark with emotion. "I should let you get some rest." "I suppose you should," Anna agreed, though she wanted nothing more than to stand here with him all night. "I'll see you next week. I'll be here." The weeks that followed settled into a pattern. Tyler came to town every Saturday, and they spent the evening together, walking and talking and sharing meals. Sometimes they drove out to the meadow again. Sometimes they simply sat on the bench outside her shop and watched the world go by. Anna felt herself falling deeper and deeper in love with this quiet, strong man who brought her wildflowers and listened to her dreams. 3 months after their first outing, Tyler arrived with news that lit up his face. "The Morrison family is selling off a parcel of land," he said. 100 acres with good water and decent grazing. "They're willing to sell it to me at a fair price, and with what I've saved, I can afford it. I'd have to take out a small loan, but it's manageable." "Tyler, that's wonderful." Anna hugged him impulsively, then stepped back, blushing at her own boldness. But Tyler did not seem to mind. He caught her hands in his expression suddenly serious. "The thing is, Anna, it's a lot of work to start a ranch from nothing. It will take years of hard labor to build it into something profitable. I'll be living in a rough cabin, working from sunrise to sunset every day. It's not an easy life I'm offering." Anna's breath caught. Offering. Tyler dropped to one knee right there on the dusty street, still holding her hands. "I know I should have a ring, something proper to give you, but I spent everything I have on the land. All I can offer you is wildflowers and hard work, and a love that grows stronger every day. But if you'll have me, Anna Lawson, I promise I'll spend the rest of my life making you happy." Tears spilled down Anna's cheeks as she looked down at this good man kneeling before her. She thought about the wildflowers he had picked for her that first day in the meadow, about his gentleness and his strength, about the way her heart felt complete when she was with him. "I don't need a ring," she said, her voice thick with emotion. "I just need you. Yes, Tyler, yes, I'll marry you." Tyler surged to his feet and swept her into his arms, spinning her around while she laughed and cried at the same time. When he set her down, he kissed her properly, not caring who might see, and Anna kissed him back with all the love in her heart. They were married 2 weeks later in a simple ceremony at the small church in Coloma. Anna wore a dress she had made herself, cream-colored silk, that she had been saving for years. Tyler wore his best suit, borrowed from one of the other ranch hands, and looked so handsome that Anna could barely breathe when she saw him standing at the altar. The Morrison family came to the wedding, along with several of Tyler's friends from the ranch. Mrs. Henderson from the boarding house attended, along with a few of Anna's customers. It was a small gathering, but it felt right to Anna. She and Tyler were both people who had lost their families, and now they were creating a new family together. After the ceremony, there was a modest celebration at the hotel. Anna stood beside her husband because Tyler was her husband now, and felt a joy so profound it was almost painful. She had come west expecting only hardship, but she had found something infinitely more valuable. She had found love. That night, they drove out to the land that was now theirs. Tyler had spent every spare moment over the past 2 weeks working on the cabin, making it as comfortable as he could for his new bride. It was small and rough, just 2 rooms with a stone fireplace and simple furniture he had built himself. But to Anna it was perfect. "It's not much," Tyler said as he carried her over the threshold, "but it's ours." Anna looked around the cabin, seeing not what it was but what it could become. She saw curtains at the windows and rugs on the floor. She saw a proper table where they could eat their meals together. She saw a future full of possibility. "It's home," she said simply. Tyler set her down and pulled her into his arms. "I love you, Anna Crawford." She had to smile at hearing her new name. "I love you too." Their wedding night was gentle and sweet, Tyler careful with her inexperience, taking his time to make sure she felt cherished and safe. Anna had heard terrible stories about wedding nights from some of the women in town, but with Tyler, it was nothing like that. He was patient and loving, and when they finally came together as husband and wife, Anna felt like they were creating something sacred. The next morning, Anna woke to find Tyler already up, standing by the window looking out at their land. The early morning light painted everything gold, and she could see the potential in this place just as clearly as she had seen it in the rough cabin. "What are you thinking about?" she asked, wrapping herself in a blanket and going to stand beside him. "I'm thinking about how much work there is to do," Tyler said honestly. "I need to build a barn, repair the fences, clear some of the land for crops. I need to buy cattle, which will take most of what little money we have left." "It's going to be hard, Anna, harder than I think either of us can imagine right now." "We'll do it together," Anna said, taking his hand. "You work on the ranch and I'll keep sewing. Between your work and my income, we'll make it work." Tyler looked down at her with an expression of such love that it made her heart ache. "How did I get so lucky? I ask myself the same thing every day. The months that followed were indeed hard. Tyler worked from before dawn until after dark, building and repairing and slowly improving their land. Anna set up a small sewing area in the corner of their cabin and continued to take orders from the women in Coloma. She rode into town once a week in their wagon to deliver finished work and pick up new orders, and every penny she earned went toward building their future. But despite the hardship, Anna had never been happier. She loved waking up next to Tyler every morning, loved the simple domesticity of cooking meals together and talking by the fire at night. She loved watching their ranch slowly take shape, seeing Tyler's dreams become reality, one fence post at a time. 6 months after their wedding, Tyler came home with 5 pregnant cows he had bought from a neighboring rancher. They were not much to look at, but they represented the beginning of their herd. Anna helped him settle them in the newly completed barn, and that night they celebrated their first real livestock with a special dinner. "This is just the beginning," Tyler said, raising his cup of water in a toast. 5 cows this year, maybe 20 next year if we're lucky. In 5 years we could have a real herd. In 5 years we might have other things too, Anna said meaningfully, and Tyler's eyes widened as he caught her meaning. "Are you saying—" "Not yet," Anna said quickly. "But maybe someday soon, if you want children, that is." Tyler came around the table and pulled her into his arms. "I want everything with you, Anna. Children, a home, a life. Everything." A year into their marriage, Anna discovered she was pregnant. The news filled her with equal parts joy and terror. She had helped her mother deliver babies back in Missouri, so she knew the dangers that childbirth held. But she also knew the joy of holding a new life, and she wanted that joy with Tyler. Tyler was overjoyed when she told him, but she could see the worry in his eyes too. "We should get you to a doctor in Sacramento," he said. "Make sure everything is all right." "Tyler, we can't afford that, and I'm healthy and strong. Women have babies every day without doctors." "Not my wife," Tyler said firmly. "Not without the best care we can get." They compromised, finding a midwife in Coloma who had delivered hundreds of babies. Mrs. Chen, the mother of Billy from the laundry, was a practical woman who examined Anna thoroughly and pronounced her fit and healthy. "First babies take their time," Mrs. Chen said. "You have many months to prepare. Eat well, rest when you need to, and don't do any heavy lifting. Your husband will need to take care of you." Tyler took this advice seriously, perhaps too seriously. He fussed over Anna constantly, not wanting her to lift anything heavier than a sewing needle. Anna appreciated his concern, but sometimes had to remind him that she was pregnant, not dying. As her belly grew, Anna found she could no longer make the weekly trip into town for her sewing business. Instead, Tyler took her finished work and brought back new orders. Some of her customers fell away, unwilling to deal with the inconvenience, but others remained loyal. Mrs. Morrison, who had been kind to them from the beginning, sent her several orders and recommended Anna to her friends. The baby came on a cold February morning in 1866, after a long night of labor that left Anna exhausted and frightened. Mrs. Chen stayed with her throughout, calm and capable, while Tyler paced outside. Finally, as dawn broke over the hills, Anna's son was born, wailing lustily and healthy. Tyler came in immediately, his face white with worry, but when he saw Anna holding their son, his expression transformed into pure wonder. He sat on the edge of the bed, his large hands gentle as he touched the baby's tiny fingers. "He's perfect," Tyler whispered. "Anna, he's perfect." "Thomas," Anna said, looking down at their son. "After your father, if that's all right." Tyler's eyes filled with tears. "Thomas Crawford, I like that." The early days with the baby were exhausting. Thomas was a good baby, but any infant required constant care. Anna found herself operating on little sleep, nursing the baby and trying to keep up with her sewing work. Tyler helped as much as he could, but he still had the ranch to run, and their small herd required daily attention. But despite the exhaustion, Anna treasured every moment. She loved watching Tyler with their son, seeing this strong, capable man reduced to gentle murmurs and silly faces by a tiny baby. She loved the quiet moments late at night when she nursed Thomas while Tyler slept nearby, their little family safe and warm in their cabin. As Thomas grew, the ranch grew too. Tyler worked tirelessly, and by the time Thomas was a year old, they had a herd of 30 cattle and had cleared enough land to plant hay and oats. It was still a small operation, but it was profitable, and that was what mattered. Anna had gradually built her sewing business back up, focusing on the more profitable custom work rather than simple alterations. She had gained a reputation for quality work, and women from as far away as Sacramento sometimes sent her orders. The extra income allowed them to make improvements to the cabin, adding a proper bedroom and a room for Thomas. On their third wedding anniversary, Tyler came home early from the range with wildflowers in his hand. They were the same varieties he had picked for her that first day in the meadow, purple and yellow and white blooms that he had ridden miles to find. "I know I should buy you something nice from a store," Tyler said as he offered her the flowers, "but these felt more right somehow." Anna took the bouquet, tears pricking her eyes as she remembered saying those words 3 years ago. "These are more beautiful than any ring." And they were, because they represented Tyler's thoughtfulness, his willingness to ride far out of his way to find them, his memory of that perfect day when everything had changed. "They're perfect," she said, standing on her toes to kiss him. "Just like you." Life settled into a comfortable rhythm. The ranch continued to grow, and by 1870, Tyler had built their herd to nearly 200 head. It was enough that he hired help during calving season and roundup, young men looking to learn the cattle business. The cabin had been expanded twice more and now felt like a real home, with Anna's curtains at every window and her quilts on every bed. Thomas was 4 years old, a bright, curious child with his father's dark eyes and his mother's gentle nature. He followed Tyler everywhere when his father was home, learning about cattle and horses and the land. Anna taught him his letters and numbers, determined that her son would have the education she had missed. One afternoon in late spring, Anna was sitting on the porch sewing while Thomas played nearby. She heard the sound of a wagon approaching and looked up to see Tyler driving up the road. It was unusual for him to come back to the house in the middle of the day, and Anna felt a flicker of concern. But Tyler was smiling as he climbed down from the wagon. "Come here," he said. "I have something to show you both." He led them around to the back of the wagon and pulled back a canvas cover. Underneath was a beautiful piece of furniture, a proper sewing machine like Anna had seen in catalogs but never dreamed of owning. "Tyler," she breathed, reaching out to touch the gleaming black metal. "This must have cost a fortune." "We had a good year," Tyler said. "And you've been working so hard, making money with just your needle and thread. With this machine, you could do twice the work in half the time. I thought it was a worthwhile investment." Anna threw her arms around him, not caring that Thomas was watching and giggling. "Thank you. Thank you so much. You're the one who deserves thanks," Tyler said, holding her close. "You've worked just as hard as I have to build this place. You deserve to have the tools you need." The sewing machine changed everything for Anna's business. She could now take on larger orders, including men's shirts and children's clothes that she had previously avoided because they took too much time. Her income nearly doubled, and she was able to save money for the first time since coming west. That winter, Anna discovered she was pregnant again. Thomas would be 5 when the baby arrived, old enough to understand about becoming a big brother. The pregnancy was easier than the first had been, perhaps because Anna was more experienced this time, or perhaps because she was not trying to establish a business while growing a baby. Their daughter was born in April of 1871, a tiny thing with delicate features and Tyler's dark hair. They named her Sarah, after Anna's mother. Tyler was smitten immediately, walking the floor with her at night when she cried, singing off-key lullabies that made Anna smile even through her exhaustion. With 2 children and a growing business, life was busier than ever. But Anna had never felt more fulfilled. She had her work, her children, and most importantly, she had Tyler. Their love had only deepened with time, growing stronger through the challenges they had faced together. On a warm day in August, Tyler suggested they take a family outing to the meadow where he had first brought Anna all those years ago. They packed a picnic lunch and loaded the children into the wagon, Thomas excited about the adventure and baby Sarah content in Anna's arms. The meadow was just as beautiful as Anna remembered, perhaps even more so. The wildflowers were in full bloom, a riot of color that made Thomas squeal with delight. Tyler spread a blanket on the grass, and they sat together as a family, eating bread and cheese while the children played nearby. "Do you remember the first time we came here?" Tyler asked, watching Thomas chase butterflies through the flowers. "Of course I do," Anna said. "You picked me wildflowers and I said something ridiculously romantic." "It wasn't ridiculous," Tyler said seriously. "It was perfect. You were perfect." "We were both so young," Anna mused, "so full of dreams and fears. I was terrified of caring about you too much, of getting hurt." "Are you still terrified?" Anna looked at him, at this man who had given her everything she had never known to ask for. "No, now I'm only terrified of losing you." Tyler reached out and took her hand, his touch as steady and reassuring as it had been that first day. "You won't lose me. I'm not going anywhere." They sat in comfortable silence, watching their children play. Sarah had fallen asleep in Anna's arms, her tiny hand curled against Anna's chest. Thomas was gathering flowers, his small hands full of purple blooms. "Mama, look," Thomas called, running over with his bouquet. "I picked these for you." Anna took the flowers, feeling tears sting her eyes. "They're beautiful, sweetheart. Thank you." "Papa showed me which ones to pick," Thomas said proudly. "The same kinds he brought you before." Anna looked at Tyler over their son's head, seeing the love in his eyes. He had taught their son this gesture, passing down the tradition of wildflowers and the meaning they held. She held the flowers to her nose, breathing in their sweet scent, and felt the circle of their life together close perfectly in this moment. As the sun began to lower toward the hills, they packed up the wagon and headed home. Thomas fell asleep against Anna's side, while she held Sarah carefully in her arms. Tyler drove the team with easy competence, one hand on the reins and the other resting on Anna's knee. "Thank you for this," Anna said quietly. "For this day, for our life, for everything." "Thank you for saying yes," Tyler replied. "For taking a chance on a cowboy with nothing but wildflowers and dreams. Best decision I ever made." The years continued to pass, marked by the changing seasons and the growth of their family and their ranch. Thomas grew into a capable young man who loved the cattle business as much as his father did. Sarah developed her mother's skill with a needle and her father's quiet strength. The ranch prospered, becoming one of the more successful operations in the area. In 1880, Anna and Tyler celebrated 15 years of marriage. They were in their late 30s now, still young but no longer the uncertain couple who had married with little more than love and determination. They had built something real and lasting, not just a ranch but a life. The cabin had been replaced years earlier by a proper house, 2 stories with a real parlor and separate bedrooms for each child. Anna had her own sewing room with her precious machine and good light from large windows. Tyler had built a barn that could house 50 head through the winter and corrals that could hold twice that many during roundup. But on their anniversary, Tyler insisted on taking Anna back to the meadow, just the 2 of them. Thomas was 14 now, responsible enough to watch his 9-year-old sister for an afternoon. They drove out in comfortable silence, the route so familiar now that the horses could have found it on their own. The meadow was less wild than it had been 15 years ago. Parts of it were now part of their rangeland, grazed by their cattle. But Tyler had deliberately kept the area where he had first picked wildflowers free from grazing, and it still bloomed every year in a riot of color. They walked into the flowers hand in hand, and Tyler pulled Anna close. She rested her head against his chest, listening to the steady beat of his heart. "You ever regret it?" Tyler asked. "The hard work, the isolation, the struggles?" Anna pulled back to look at him, seeing the vulnerability in his eyes. Even after all these years, he still worried about whether he had given her enough, whether she was truly happy. "Never," she said firmly. "Tyler, you gave me everything I never knew I wanted. A home, a family, a purpose. You gave me yourself, and that has always been more than enough." Tyler cupped her face in his hands, his touch still gentle despite the calluses and scars of a working life. "I love you more now than I did the day we married. I didn't think that was possible, but it's true." "I love you too," Anna whispered. "More than wildflowers, more than anything in this world." He kissed her then, deep and long, and Anna felt the same spark she had felt at their first kiss all those years ago. Some things never changed, and some things only got better with time. As they stood there in the meadow, surrounded by wildflowers and memories, Anna thought about the bullet that had nearly killed her in Coloma all those years ago. She thought about how one moment of random violence had led to meeting Tyler, to building this life, to having everything she had never dared to dream of. Life was unpredictable and often harsh, especially in the West. But it was also full of unexpected beauty, of second chances, of wildflowers blooming in impossible places. She had come to California expecting only to survive, but she had found so much more. She had found love, family, and a place to call home. 3 more years passed, bringing new joys and challenges. Thomas, now 17, had taken over much of the day-to-day running of the ranch, showing a natural talent for the work that filled Tyler with quiet pride. Sarah had become Anna's apprentice in the sewing business, her quick fingers and eye for detail making her invaluable. In the spring of 1883, Anna discovered she was pregnant again, a surprise at age 39. She had thought her childbearing years were behind her, but life, it seemed, had one more gift to give them. Tyler was concerned about the risks, but the midwife who examined Anna pronounced her healthy and fit. Their son was born in December, a Christmas baby they named Michael. Thomas and Sarah doted on their baby brother, and Anna found herself enchanted all over again by the wonder of a newborn. Tyler, now 42, was more patient than ever, content to sit for hours with his youngest son in his arms. "I thought we were done with this," Anna said one night, watching Tyler walk the floor with a fussy Michael. "Babies at our age." "I thought so too," Tyler admitted, "but I'm not complaining. Every child is a blessing." As Michael grew, the family dynamic shifted again. Thomas announced his intention to marry a young woman from a neighboring ranch, and Tyler gave them a parcel of land to start their own place. It was hard to watch their oldest son establish his own life, but it was also deeply satisfying to see him ready to build his own future. Sarah showed no interest in marriage yet, preferring to focus on expanding the sewing business. She had ideas for ready-made clothing that could be sold through catalogs, and Anna supported her ambitions even as she worried about her daughter taking on too much. Through it all, Anna and Tyler remained the steady center of their family. They still took occasional trips to the meadow, though less frequently now with a young child to care for. But the wildflowers Tyler had picked that first day remained pressed in Anna's Bible, a reminder of where they had started. In 1890, the family gathered to celebrate Anna and Tyler's 25th wedding anniversary. Thomas was there with his wife and their 2 children, making Anna and Tyler grandparents. Sarah, now 19, had designed and sewn a beautiful dress for her mother for the occasion. Young Michael, now 7, had picked wildflowers from the meadow with his father's help. The celebration was held at their house, with neighbors and friends filling the rooms with laughter and good wishes. Anna stood beside Tyler, accepting congratulations and feeling overwhelmed by the fullness of their life. So many people, so much love, all stemming from a chance meeting on a violent day in Coloma. That night, after everyone had gone home and the children were in bed, Anna and Tyler sat on their front porch looking out over the land they had built together. The moon was full, casting silver light across the rolling hills. 25 years, Tyler said, shaking his head. Sometimes it feels like yesterday we were starting out. Other times it feels like we've always been together. Both are true, I think, Anna said. Time is strange that way. Tyler reached into his pocket and pulled out something small. Anna was surprised to see it was a ring, a simple gold band with a single small diamond. I know you said you didn't need a ring, Tyler said, and you've been right. We've built our life on more important things than jewelry. But I wanted to give you this anyway, as a symbol of everything we've created together. You said the wildflowers were more beautiful than any ring, and you were right. But maybe you can have both. Anna took the ring with trembling fingers. After 25 years, this gesture still had the power to move her to tears. Tyler took it from her and slid it onto her finger, where it sat beside the plain band she had worn since their wedding day. It's beautiful, she whispered, but you were right all those years ago. The wildflowers were always enough. I know, Tyler said, but you deserve beautiful things, Anna. You've earned them 1,000 times over. They sat in comfortable silence, Anna admiring the ring that caught the moonlight and threw tiny rainbows across her lap. But even as she appreciated the gift, she knew Tyler had been right in that meadow all those years ago when he had worried about having nothing but wildflowers to offer. The wildflowers had been enough. His love had been enough. Everything else was just extra blessing. The 1890s brought changes to Coloma and the surrounding area. The gold rush days were long past, and the town had settled into a quieter existence. Some of the original buildings were gone now, replaced by newer structures or simply abandoned. The general store where Anna had first taken shelter from flying bullets was now a feed store, and her old dressmaking shop had become a barber. But the Crawford ranch continued to thrive. Thomas had built his own successful operation on his parcel of land, and he and Tyler often worked together, combining their herds for the drive to market. Sarah had indeed started a mail-order business, designing clothes that were sold through catalogs throughout California and into Nevada. Michael was growing up with the same love of the land that his father and brother shared. In 1895, Anna and Tyler celebrated their 30th anniversary quietly, just the two of them in the meadow. It had become their tradition over the years to return to this spot on significant occasions, to remember where they had started and appreciate how far they had come. The meadow was showing signs of age, some of the wildflowers less abundant than they had once been. But Tyler had continued to preserve it, keeping cattle away and even seeding new wildflowers when he could. It was important to him that this place remain, a living memorial to the day he had found the courage to tell Anna how he felt. "You remember what you said to me that day?" Tyler asked as they walked through the flowers. "When I gave you that first bouquet, 'These are more beautiful than any ring,'" Anna recited. "I remember. I meant it then and I still mean it now. Even though I eventually got you a ring, even though," Anna confirmed. "The ring is beautiful and I treasure it. But the wildflowers represented something more important. They represented you seeing me, really seeing me, and wanting to share something you loved with me. That was worth more than any expensive gift could ever be." Tyler stopped and turned to face her, his hands gentle on her shoulders. They were both older now, gray threading through their hair and lines marking their faces. But when Anna looked at Tyler, she still saw the young cowboy who had pulled her to safety, who had offered her wildflowers and a future. "I love you, Anna Crawford," Tyler said, as he had said 1,000 times before. But it never got old, and it always made her heart flutter. "I love you too," she replied, "always and forever." As the new century approached, the Crawford family continued to grow and flourish. Thomas and his wife had 4 children now, and Sarah had finally married a young businessman from Sacramento who supported her work. Michael, at 17, was preparing to take over the main ranch operation as Tyler began to slow down. Anna was in her mid-50s now, still working but at a more relaxed pace. Her eyes were not as sharp as they once were, and her hands sometimes ached from decades of detailed work. But she still loved creating beautiful things, still found joy in seeing a dress come together under her skilled fingers. On a warm summer evening in 1899, the entire extended family gathered at the ranch for a reunion. There were grandchildren running everywhere, adults clustered in conversations, the smell of roasting meat filling the air. Anna stood on the porch watching it all, marveling at how their family had grown. Tyler came to stand beside her, slipping his arm around her waist. It was a gesture as natural as breathing after 34 years of marriage. "Look at what we made," he said softly. Anna knew he was not just talking about their children but about everything. The ranch, the business, the life they had built from nothing but love and determination. "We did good, didn't we?" she said. "We did better than good. We did extraordinary." The new century arrived, bringing with it changes and challenges. The railroad had made its way through the area, making it easier to ship cattle to market but also bringing more people and more development. Coloma was growing again, though it would never return to the wild boom town days of the gold rush. Tyler turned 60 in 1901, and although he was still strong and healthy, he began to talk seriously about fully retiring and letting Michael take over the ranch. Anna supported the decision, secretly hoping it would mean more time for them to simply enjoy each other's company. But fate had other plans. That winter, a hard freeze killed several head of cattle and damaged buildings throughout the ranch. Tyler threw himself into the recovery effort with all his old vigor, working long hours despite Anna's protests. He pushed himself too hard, she could see it, but she also knew better than to try to stop him. The ranch was his life's work, and he would not stand by while it suffered. In March of 1902, Tyler came down with a terrible cold that settled into his chest. Anna nursed him with every skill she possessed, but pneumonia was a deadly enemy. For 2 weeks, Tyler fought, his strong body trying desperately to overcome the infection. Anna never left his side, sleeping in a chair beside their bed, waking at every sound he made. Michael ran the ranch while Thomas and Sarah came to stay, all of them taking turns sitting with their father. But it was Anna who was there when Tyler finally opened his eyes clearly after days of fever. "Anna," he whispered, his voice rough and weak. "I'm here," she said, taking his hand. "I'm right here." "The meadow," Tyler said. "Take me to see the meadow one more time. You need to rest," Anna said, her heart breaking because she knew what he was really saying. "You need to get better." "Please," Tyler said, and the look in his eyes made her nod despite the tears streaming down her face. They bundled him up in blankets and carried him to the wagon. Anna sat beside him, holding him as gently as she could, while Michael drove them to the meadow. It was early spring, and the first wildflowers were just beginning to bloom, tiny spots of color against the brown grass. Tyler looked out at the meadow, his eyes bright with something that might have been fever or might have been joy. "Beautiful," he whispered. "Just like you said all those years ago," Anna said, her voice breaking. Tyler turned his head to look at her, and she saw such love in his eyes that it hurt to breathe. "Thank you," he said, "for saying yes, for building this life with me, for being my Anna." "Thank you for the wildflowers," she whispered. "For seeing me, for loving me, always," Tyler said. "Even after I'm gone, I'll always love you." "Don't say that," Anna begged, even though she knew it was true. "Please don't leave me." "Not leaving," Tyler said with effort, "just going ahead. I'll wait for you, in a meadow somewhere with wildflowers." He closed his eyes then, and Anna felt his hand relax in hers. For one horrible moment she thought he was gone, but then she felt his pulse, weak but steady. Michael drove them home, and they got Tyler back to bed. But Anna had seen the truth in his eyes. Tyler was ready to go. He had lived a full life, built something lasting, and loved deeply. He was at peace with whatever came next. 3 days later, surrounded by his family in the bedroom he had shared with Anna for nearly 40 years, Tyler Crawford passed quietly into death. Anna held his hand until the end, whispering her love to him, telling him about the wildflowers blooming in the meadow. The grief was crushing. After 37 years of marriage, Anna felt like half of herself had been torn away. She moved through the funeral in a daze, accepting condolences without really hearing them. They buried Tyler on a hill overlooking the ranch, with a view of the meadow where he had first declared his love. In the weeks that followed, Anna struggled to find purpose. Michael ran the ranch capably, Sarah managed the business, and Anna felt adrift without Tyler beside her. She started going to the meadow every day, sitting among the wildflowers and talking to Tyler as if he could hear her. One day, as she sat there surrounded by purple and yellow blooms, Anna realized that Tyler had given her a gift that lasted beyond his death. He had taught her that love was not about expensive things or grand gestures. It was about seeing someone truly, about sharing what you loved, about building something together one day at a time. Anna began to heal slowly. She returned to her sewing, finding comfort in the familiar rhythm of needle and thread. She spent time with her children and grandchildren, seeing Tyler's legacy in their faces and their lives. And she continued to visit the meadow, picking wildflowers and pressing them between the pages of her Bible, adding to the collection she had started so many years ago. 5 years after Tyler's death, Anna was 70 years old and still going strong. Her hair was completely gray now, her hands marked by decades of work, but her mind was sharp and her heart, though scarred by loss, was still capable of joy. On what would have been their 42nd wedding anniversary, Anna took her entire family to the meadow. It had become a Crawford tradition to gather there on special occasions, and all of them understood its significance. Anna stood among her children, grandchildren, and even a few great-grandchildren, looking out at the wildflowers that still bloomed faithfully every year. She told them the story they had heard before, but never tired of hearing, about a young cowboy who had picked wildflowers for a scared seamstress, and how she had said they were more beautiful than any ring. "Your grandfather taught me that the most precious gifts are the ones given freely with love," Anna said. "Not because you have to, not because it's expected, but because you genuinely want to share something beautiful with someone you care about." That lesson has stayed with me for over 40 years, and it's what I want to pass on to all of you. After the family left, Anna stayed behind for a while. She had brought a blanket and planned to watch the sunset from the meadow, something she and Tyler had done countless times over the years. As the sun began to sink toward the hills, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink, Anna picked a bouquet of wildflowers. She held them to her nose, breathing in their sweet scent, and felt Tyler's presence as clearly as if he were sitting beside her. "I kept my promise," she said aloud. "I built a good life. Our children are happy and successful. The ranch is thriving. And I visit our meadow regularly, just like you would have wanted." The wind rustled through the grass, carrying the scent of wildflowers and warm earth. Anna smiled through her tears, feeling at peace in a way she had not felt since Tyler's death. She knew she would not live forever. 70 was old by anyone's standards, especially for someone who had worked as hard as she had. But she was not afraid of death anymore. Tyler had gone ahead, just like he said, and she knew he would be waiting for her in a meadow somewhere, with wildflowers in his hands. Anna lived for another 8 years, remaining active and engaged until nearly the end. She died peacefully in her sleep at age 78, in the house Tyler had built, surrounded by the family they had created together. Her children buried her beside Tyler on the hill overlooking the ranch. At the foot of her grave, they planted wildflowers, the same varieties that grew in the meadow. Every year they bloomed faithfully, purple and yellow and white, a living reminder of a love story that had started with a simple bouquet and lasted beyond death itself. The Crawford Ranch continued to thrive, passed down through generations who never forgot the story of their grandparents. The meadow was preserved as family land, protected so that every generation could visit and remember where it all began. On quiet summer evenings, when the wildflowers were in full bloom, some of the Crawford descendants swear they can see 2 figures walking through the meadow hand in hand. An old cowboy and the woman he loved, together again in the place where their story truly began, surrounded by wildflowers that bloom eternal. The story of Tyler and Anna Crawford became a legend in Coloma and the surrounding areas. People told it as an example of true love, of hard work and determination, of building something lasting from humble beginnings. The wildflowers in the meadow became known as Crawford's blooms, and young men in the area started the tradition of picking them for the women they loved. Through the decades, and into the next century, the Crawford legacy endured. The ranch was eventually donated to become a state historic site, preserving not just the buildings but the story of the family who had built them. Visitors could walk through the house where Anna had sewn, see the barn Tyler had built with his own hands, and most importantly, visit the meadow where it all began. A small museum was established, featuring Anna's pressed flowers, still preserved in her mother's Bible. Tyler's saddle and chaps were displayed alongside Anna's sewing machine. Letters they had written to each other were carefully preserved behind glass, their words of love still powerful more than a century after they were written. But the most popular attraction was always the meadow. Park rangers made sure the wildflowers were protected, and even supplemented the natural blooms with careful plantings. Couples came from all over California to walk where Tyler and Anna had walked, to pick wildflowers and remember that the best gifts come from the heart. The story spread beyond California, appearing in books and magazines as an example of Western romance. Historians studied the Crawford family papers, finding in them not just a love story but a detailed picture of life in late 19th century California. The struggles and triumphs of building a ranch from nothing, the challenges of running a business as a woman in that era, the way love and family sustained people through hard times. But more than the historical significance, it was the simple romance of the story that captured people's imaginations. In a world that often seemed cynical about love, the story of the cowboy and his wildflowers offered hope. It reminded people that true love was built on small gestures and daily choices, not grand romantic displays. And so the legacy of Tyler and Anna Crawford lived on, not just in their descendants but in the hearts of everyone who heard their story. A reminder that sometimes the most beautiful things in life are free, that love can flourish even in harsh conditions, and that wildflowers picked with love are indeed more beautiful than any ring. The meadow still blooms every year, a riot of purple and yellow and white, a living testament to a love that started with a simple bouquet and grew into something extraordinary. And on quiet evenings when the wind rustles through the grass, you can almost hear whispers of love carried on the breeze, eternal as the wildflowers themselves.